I know you were at the media side of things while I was in the bowl with the fans. I'm interested in just your thoughts on what we heard yesterday from all the parties involved, considering a lot of the angst and obviously a very sensitive topic for Winnipeggers that, have a very unique history when it comes to professional hockey here in the city of Winnipeg and in the National League.
Yeah, I think the unique history is worth acknowledging, right? It's going to be tough to approach any situation like this if you have a memory of your heart being ripped out from within you in the mid 90s. That it's a feeling of deja vu for a lot of Jets fans in a way that I think probably made the last several days very difficult. Anytime that you have, someone like Mark Chipman talking about a 27% decrease in season ticket commitments and the idea that the machine won't be sustainable in the long haul without improving that, well, you don't have to go too far back in a lot of people's lifetimes to remember a whole lot of pain. At the same time, I think that one thing was clear, whether it was Chris Johnston's article, whether it was my follow-up, this wasn't a situation of, hey, there's a threat to move the team. But I think everybody wanted to hear what Gary Bettman was going to say about it. Was he going to play good cop? Was he going to play bad cop? I mean, there was one theory that he was going to show up and, Mark Chipman was going to get to do the good cop stuff with the, hey, look at everything we're doing. Here's how invested we are. And Gary Bettman might, show up and talk about the harsh economic realities. It was very much not the case. And I think that one thing that was made just incredibly clear was how much the league believes in True North's ownership, in True North's investment in downtown, in the amount of commitment that there is to this city. And it was probably reassuring for a lot of folks to see the season ticket issue reframed as a bit of a blip more than an immediate, 10-alarm, 5-alarm fire sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, it all certainly depends on your perspective on it. I mean, I know that if you're inside the walls of that organization and seen what's happened, I mean, it probably does feel that way. And I think there is a real sense of urgency, which speaks to the work they've been doing throughout this season leading into this campaign to kind of reverse the erosion of that season ticket base and get it back to a place where this team can be competitive and healthy for a very long time. I'll be honest. I mean, I wanted to hear what Gary Bettman was going to have to say, but I really do think the most important things that need to be said are, from the stewards, as Mark Chipman said, of the club, and that is from True North Sports and Entertainment. And I know that this hasn't been out there yet because the fan portion of the event, and I don't think any of the media were there, there were some pointed questions that they actually did have in it about, messaging to fans that they had lost in the past.
Mark, this question is for you. It's from Laura, who submitted it, who said that she has had season tickets since the beginning, but has been disappointed with how the Jets have handled season ticket holder renewal options. Why were the Jets so rigid, and do they have flexibility for season ticket holder ticket packages?
We do, and I think we were, for the longest time, we were too rigid because we were protecting a wait list for a long time, and so I think that got in the way of better judgment. I don't know how else to explain it. We were too inflexible. We had run, for 10 years a certain way, and we were too slow to respond to needing more flexibility, more ways, to come to a game. Different price points. We went from 9 to 27 price points, and we've worked very hard over the past couple of years to make it easier. I wish I could take back the mistakes we made in that regard. I am really sorry that we made it difficult in any way whatsoever. I've been conveying that sense of regret to the people that I've been talking to, that have raised the concern as well. So we accept the responsibility for it. We're sorry for whatever inconvenience or insensitivity we may have shown. I can tell you it wasn't intentional. It was more a consequence of just being stuck in a way we did things for 10 years. We think we've adjusted to it now, and for those who, have stuck with us like these folks, and I'm so deeply grateful. And for those that, have left and are considering coming back, I hope they will give us another chance to regain their trust.
I personally think, and I've talked about this before, the most important thing that needed to be said to, some of the people that, for whatever reason, had felt that, maybe they weren't appreciated or that had left the club, that have the ability to be back, that probably do want to, was about a 2-minute clip from Mark Chipman at the end of the fan bit, which spoke to, their responsibility for some of the things, a frank, a humble way of essentially apologizing for some of that and hoping that people will give them another chance moving forward. That's something that I think there's a certain portion of the fan base that they lost that I think we'll hear. And I mean, I like it. I had a great conversation yesterday with a friend of mine that's in the restaurant industry that, was one of those people that had an experience that sort of put them off, and they didn't have seats and they hadn't really been supporting for the last number of years, but they still love the team. They go to some games every now and then. And I likened it to imagine you've got a favorite restaurant that you're really invested in. You go through there. Now, maybe there's some personnel changes or whatever, and you have a couple meals that you don't really like, and then you have a bad experience that really turns you off. You still would kind of love to go back there, but maybe on principle for a while you're staying away. And, if you turn those tables, and if the people from the restaurant say, listen, we're really sorry you had that experience, but we appreciate your business. We missed you. Would you give us another chance to sort of earn your trust back? And that was in a different way. I'll just use that analogy of what it was, although with much bigger stakes and a bigger invoice that we heard from Mark, and I think was necessary. Overall, I mean, I have to admit, listen, you know me, I'm a positive person. I want to see this work out. It's in everybody's best interest for the team to be healthy. And frankly, just putting my fan hat on for a minute, the games are a hell of a lot more fun when the building's full than when there's 2,000 or 3,000 empty seats. I felt a lot of positivity in the building yesterday, and maybe that's because of the fans that were there probably feel a lot along the same lines of me. But, from your perch, Murat, in the people that you've talked to, the reaction from what you heard at the media, would you categorize that as a step in the right direction and a positive day overall for what the Jets are trying to accomplish?
I think so. I mean, if the answer is like, is there some positive feeling or some positive momentum that I'm perceiving? Sure, yeah, absolutely. My big thing, Huss, and I should say, from my press box perch, as I was making sure that I got my pieces out on time and everything was straightforward and set. I did hear that Mark Chipman bit, and I think that that's really important because I think that your analogy about the restaurant is bang on. Like, let's talk about the reality of Winnipeg Jets season tickets. The idea that such a high percentage is individuals, and sure, there's community businesses and things like that chip in on that too, but it's individuals. It's not giant corporate interests. If you look at the decline, it's in individuals. It's in a couple thousand people having that experience at the restaurant that you had. It's the restaurant analogy, but at scale. If you look at the times when Winnipeg has sold out its buildings this year, you can immediately point to real life, human being, non-corporate, but just like Winnipegger reasons why the building was full or not. So you've got Connor Bedard, you've got Sidney Crosby, you've got a December 30th game in the midst of a lot of people's winter holidays against Minnesota. Like, there are easy ties to make between real life lived human experiences in Winnipeg and the attendance in that building. So your point about the apology being important, or a sense of, hey, we didn't get this right. I mean, you can only do that so many times. This is, I think, the first and biggest and most major version of that True North is offering to the community. And I think that is so necessary. This is a series. This is a scaled series of one-on-one relationships between a franchise and its fans. And I think that the more they manage that, realizing that there are these individuals at the other end of it, because that corporate interest thing, that's going to be a longer-term work in progress. The more that they manage those relationships as if it's one-to-one, the better that they're going to do. I think that that's fundamental to success in Winnipeg. So that sense of positivity, that people maybe feel heard in a way that they haven't feel heard, the cynics will probably paint over that, but I think that's one of the biggest things to come out of yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, you're never going to have 100% support. I mean, there will always be naysayers for whatever reason, but I mean, particularly when we're talking about the people that had already been investing in this club, to get them back to say that, there are more options for you to be able to support this club, maybe in a different way that you were able to before, a different way is important. A lot of this, from my perspective, comes from personal experience. And I will tell you, I was one of the first employees of the Moose in '96. And that first year, you're coming out of losing your National Hockey League team. And there were so many people that had seats before with the Jets, and the team moved, and they're like, whatever, we'll get Moose seats for the first year. And I mean, the first game, the place is full. We lose 1-0, shutout by Paris Doofus and Vegas Thunder. And, we're just sort of like, are you kidding me? And the team sucked. And there was still that hangover of losing the team. And, that next off season, without a doubt in my life, was the biggest challenge I've ever been involved in, trying to give people a reason to stay with this, give the season another chance. And, there's a lot of people that were done. They didn't have a good feeling going to the arena because, frankly, it brought back memories of something that they were still having a hard time getting over. And those conversations with people, and again, it was very different. They didn't really feel, I think, slighted by the organization or anything like that, but it was more the entire big picture of how bent they were and how they didn't have a great time at the games last year. And like the one-on-one conversations that I had with my customers and relationships saying, please hang in there for one more year, give us another chance to try and move this forward. It will be great for the city and all of those things. And I mean, I lean on that in so many different ways of, just communicating with people and understanding, a lot of that the transaction of a relationship and the give and take. And I'll always be appreciative of the people that, looked me and said, okay, us, get out of here. We're in for another year. But that was a big part of the way that team was sort of built up from such a low after that first season to the point where they were a flagship AHL team that ended up going into the National Hockey League. And I think they have to lean in on a lot of that to do the hard work that needs to be done in the community to get this thing going in the right direction.